If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Bruce Maccabee, and James Christbaum, my co-host, is out there somewhere. And Bruce, well, you know, again, getting back to what we were just talking about, James, did you have another question or anything?
I was just curious if Bruce, in all his research, has he ever delved into the research of implants on any subjects? And if he has, what has he come up with?
No, I haven't delved into the research on implants, but I do have a comment on that. First, I'd like to ask that you say hello to Whitley for me when you're talking to him tomorrow night. Is that okay? Hello?
Yeah, James, did he disappear again?
No, I didn't. He broke up. I didn't even hear him till just the end, and maybe it's on my end. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, he broke up. Can you repeat that, Bruce? You kind of...
Yeah, I just asked if you would remind me to mention me to Whitley when you talk to him tomorrow night.
I will bring you up, certainly. I mean, you know, I have never met Whitley at all. I've never talked to him. You know, as you know, Art was a good friend of mine. But, you know, Whitney is one person I wanted to get to know for years. So I'm thankful he decided to come on my show.
Yeah, well, of course, he's promoting his newest book. But, yeah, he's quite a guy. But back to the question of whether you...
Uh-oh.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, he was breaking up, and I don't hear him now at all.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there you go.
I wonder if anybody's hearing us.
Yeah, you're back again. Okay, so you just kind of dropped out. Are you on a cell phone, or what are you on?
Oh.
Are you still there?
Me?
Yeah, Bruce. What are you on a cell phone or a regular phone?
This is a landline. This is a landline.
Oh wow, maybe they just don't want us to talk to you tonight. I don't know.
It's that implant question. Every time I bring it up, we get a bad connection.
Well, I haven't. I'm certainly aware of the work that Roger Lear did, and getting implants out of people's feet, and he orchestrated some implants get taken from other locations by other specialists. Being a professional, he being a podiatrist, he stuck to taking stuff out of feet, and called in other professionals if he had to get something out of some other part of the body. Now, I remember when I was at Roswell, during the Roswell celebration, I guess back in the late 90s or early 2000s, I forget which time it was, there was a guy there who had something under his skin. It was a magnetic something or other. He would hold his hand out flat on the table, and between, I think it was the second or third fingers, at the joint area, he would move a strong magnet back and forth, and you could see the skin stretch and move like some object moving back and forth with a magnet that was pulling against the skin. And I couldn't see any evidence of a scar, like he might have gotten a piece of metal stuck in his skin from some mechanical work or something like that, and then it sealed up. I have a scar from sticking my hand on a razor blade, and the scar's been there for like 75 years now. It didn't go away. When I was a little boy, 2 years old or whatever, I didn't know what a razor blade was all about. And my mother wasn't too happy about that. But anyway, point is, you get something under your skin like that, or you make a bad connection in your skin and get a scar, it tends to stay there. So I don't know how this guy got something under his skin that definitely moved with a magnet. There's not enough iron in your blood for you to be affected by a magnet. If there were, people wouldn't have MRIs and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. But Timothy Cullen, he was I think number 9th implant removal from the late Dr. Roger Lear, and his was in the arm. And the compound, when it was sent out to the lab, it was silver and some other type of compounds. But according to the lab, it was nothing that could have been done on Earth because they wouldn't know how to combine all those other metals with the silver. And that was kind of interesting. But, the guest we had on, which I told you need to listen to, Terry Lovelace, he had one in his knee and has one in his knee. And they found his originally from, I think, X-rays and other, testing. And it's kind of almost like a integrated circuit chip. It has like wires coming out of it. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, I seem to remember somebody. Do you know when that was?
Well, his when he was abducted was it James around 1974, something like that?
Yeah, it's around 74, but he'd been going jogging, and he'd felt discomfort about at the 2-mile mark every time, and he went to the doctor, and same thing. They was like, hey, you've had an accident, where's the scar? And it looked like a chip. I've actually, I looked at the x-ray, I've seen it, and it's really bizarre looking. It looks like a chip.
Yeah, I guess if you took a modern watch apart, gave it to somebody to figure out what it's supposed to do or how to fix it if it's broken, they'd be confronted with a whole bunch of lines that seem to be well orchestrated like streets in the city, but you wouldn't know how to make it work because of a certain thing that we call software that goes along with the hardware. And you may be able to figure out the hardware, figure out what the circuit is, but it requires some knowledge of voltages on the various circuit elements that would correspond to the program or software that runs whatever it is.
I just wonder what the whole purpose of an implant is. I mean, what are they monitoring, or what are they trying to monitor? That's the $10 question.
I recall Lear talking about one of his first removals from somebody's foot, how as he was using the scalpel to get closer and closer to it, it started to move away from him.
Yeah, well, that's quite common. Whitley, he has that implant in his ear, and, they tried removing it numerous times. And according to what Whitley would always say, that his ear would, get bright red, hot, and the thing would move. So every time they went there with a scalpel to try to get it out, whatever the object is, it would literally move, like it didn't want to come out.
Well, I also remember Lear saying that when he did get one of these things out, he couldn't. It was so hard, he had a tough time cutting it with a scalpel.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I would think, abductions, it's been going on for, such a long time. Whatever, I just don't know. I don't understand what is going on and why they would still be doing it.
The key to the whole mystery is down at the atomic level, I suspect. Things like DNA. How did the first DNA come about? There's an awful lot of structure going on down deep.
Yeah, but don't you think that after thousands of years of abductions, they would have figured out what they wanted? I would think that they would.
Well, assuming that there's only one group of entities that's acting at any one time, and over the years the newer groups of entities come along and try to understand what's going on here. I'm going to be writing up some stuff on Edward Walters, from Gulf Breeze back in starting in November 1987. Oddly enough, it was Veterans Day 1987 that I had a huge snowstorm in the Washington, D.C. area. And while there was also a storm of UFO sightings that began in Gulf Breeze, Florida on the same day at 2:30 in the morning, November 11th. And from then on, there were sightings almost continually. Ed Walters became famous at that time for taking pictures of them. And over the investigation, the sightings lasted from November. The first wave of sightings lasted from November 87 through July of 88. And during that time, he had what we finally decided were a bunch of abductions. And there was really, it's kind of complicated to explain the circumstances under which this was discovered, but apparently at night he had events that happened which he didn't remember, except he would remember something to write down. He was accustomed to having a notepad near his bed. Sometimes he'd wake up in the middle of the night, have some idea or think about something, and he'd write down, and then the next morning he would read it and see if it made any sense. And this happened a number of times in the spring of '88. He had these writings that didn't seem to make any sense until he was hypnotized and regressed by Dr. Daniel Overlaid, a clinical psychologist who worked with Ed for 8, I think, some number of sessions that were each an hour or so long. And what came out was a series of events that amounted to abductions, and Ed undergoing what looked like what appeared to be tests or experiments, where they were learning experiments. He would asleep, he would recall under hypnosis being taken to some place and then confronted with various situations that he had to solve this situation. And one that sticks in my mind was where he's in a room, and there's something like 3 alligators. He himself and 2 children